What is up, RotoGrinders? Literally right on cue as we went live. It started pouring here, so my apologies for the rain. Hopefully, we're going to dodge it. Hopefully, it passes quickly down here in South Florida. South Florida, of course, pumped about their Florida Panthers tonight, but we're not talking hockey. Hockey, so, showdown slate. Have some fun with that. Enjoy it for sure. But it's the second half of today's split doubleheader of baseball. Why are we on so early? It's 4:30 for GrindersLive. Well, that's because Fanduel gave us the 6 o'clock game in Philadelphia. We're assuming that game's going to play. We'll see. Stay tuned. But, of course, that game got canceled yesterday due to the smoke monster, the smoke issue from Canada. Thanks, Canada. Hopefully it's going to be good to go. We'll see what Roth has to say. And I imagine within the next hour and a half, we'll get the clear. It's all good or all not good. We'll get that game wiped out. But that's why we're on early, because FanDuel sponsor Crunch Time comes on in an hour. They lead you guys into the start of the FanDuel slates. Of course, they'll be talking DraftKings as well. It is myself, and the man is known for hating fun. But what is more fun, Tim, than this slate tonight? I mean, if there is an adjective you can think of for fun, for this slate, is fun on the board for you? Maybe, kind of, sort of, somewhat. It's good.
I want to backtrack just for a second here, because I was thinking about this earlier in the day, how fraudulent of a Panthers fan you are, and how you probably couldn't even name two players on the team up until like a month ago. And now all I hear about are the Panthers, Stanley Cup. Is this true? Like, could you name more than two players?
Of course I could name more than two players. Yes, absolutely.
Montour,
defenseman, Gudas, defenseman. I won't even name like Bobrovsky or Kachuk or Barkov. Of course, Huberdeau was traded in the offseason for Kachuk, sent off to Calgary. We signed him for 8 or 9 years. That's how hockey contracts work. Aaron Ekblad. I'll have you know, my friend, I am in a dynasty hockey league, and I cashed this year. That's how bad, with Canadians that know hockey, and I cashed. So how dare you?
All right, I don't really buy it. I'm gonna start next hockey season. I'm gonna start testing your knowledge so that I know that you actually know before your team makes it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Okay, because I don't know if I buy this.
I think you're just a bitter Boston Bruins fan that just you can't just say, good series, congratulations. I know we should have locked it down at Game 7. We're up by 1 with a minute to go, and we screwed up. Let you guys score. I think it was Gudas that scored on a deflection. And you're the greatest regular season hockey team of all time, and you're a famous failure, a big L on the Bruins, and that's why you're upset.
Both of these theories could be true, Dean. Both of these things can be true.
Yeah, I would be. Well, the weird thing is nobody cares about this. The weird thing is that the Panthers last year had the number one seed. That's just how hockey goes. They got knocked out in the first round or the second round. They got knocked out early. It's just how that goes. Sometimes there's a lot of variance in hockey playoffs. Get yourself a hot goalie, i.e. Bobrovsky. At least he was. Before the last 2 games. But hopefully I say we, because I'm an honorary member of the Panthers. Hopefully we, make it a series and win tonight. No game tonight in baseball. By the way, we should mention the Philadelphia Phillies, again, no updates as far as that game is going to go. We're assuming it's going to go. We do have official lineups there. That game is being played only on FanDuel, not on DraftKings. The Yankees, there's a doubleheader today for the Yankees. Neither of those games matter. There's one going on, I think, right now, one going on later. On DraftKings, you can click players for the Yankees, but understand those guys are not going to accumulate any points for you. Do not do that. Do not play any Yankees or whoever they're playing. The White Sox. Don't play those White Sox either.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, the Yankees are still showing up in our top stacks tool. Disregard that information. Hopefully somebody in the back end will fix that. But I was just looking at that page like I always do. It's part of my process every single day, and they are still on there. So those need to be updated. Hopefully somebody on the back end can do that.
Mr. Gerg in chat says, Dean and Tim were completely aligned on the expert survey today. How about that?
We were?
I didn't know that, to be honest. That's funny. I'm pulling it up now.
I must have made a mistake somewhere.
I was waiting for the Step Brothers gift or something that producer Steve was going to drop, but you're already backtracking. Can you hear this noise, by the way? It's really annoying. I apologize. It's pouring rain here in South Florida, but Yeah, let's see. Well, I know on FanDuel specifically, you preferred Zach Wheeler over Strider. A little bit cheaper than Strider. Of course, Spencer Strider is the greatest, one of the greatest mustaches in the league. That doesn't give any fantasy points, but the best K rate in the league by far. On this slate, I think he's 15 points ahead of everybody else, which is outrageous. Everybody's throwing baseballs today. We're talking about, oh man, where's my page? Okay, never mind. I have it on the fly. I thought I was prepared, just wasn't organized the way I wanted it to. So Strider on the season, 40.6% as far as K rate. The second highest K rate on the slate is Framber Valdez. All of his ground balls, just 26.9%. So basically over 13 percentage points higher than everybody else. And he's actually leading the league in K rate by, I think, 5 percentage points over everybody. Just outrageous. He's facing the Mets. Mets are pretty tough offense, obviously. They're a bit wounded, though. There will be no polar bear attacks today in Atlanta unless something – do they have a zoo in Atlanta? They probably do, right? It's a big city. They have an aquarium. I think they're known for their aquarium in Atlanta. And the Coke tour. Take the tour. I hear it's fun. I don't know. No Alonso. Alonso got hit yesterday. X-rays are negative, thankfully. But Pete Alonso not in that New York lineup. The reason why Wheeler is projecting a tick better than Strider is because Wheeler gets to throw baseballs with his right hand against the Tigers, and that's kind of a cheat code. FanDuel specific, you want to give me the case for Wheeler over Strider? Both are great, obviously.
Yeah, it's a pretty thin case. Like, I don't have like a ton of conviction about it, but I did say to you pre-show, and I do stand by this, that if I was playing cash games on FanDuel, I would still play Wheeler just because of the discount and the matchup. You know, like, do I think that that's some kind of lock? No, I don't. Like, Strider could obviously strike out the world, but I think the matchup is it's just a lot better, and I think it's a lot safer. And Wheeler is cheaper. So it's just, this Mets team, I mean, they're not amazing, but they're pretty scrappy. They're a pretty scrappy team. And I don't, I think, I wish Wheeler was on this DraftKings slate because I think we would have these pretty massive decisions, right? Because on DK, we don't have a decision. So on FanDuel, I'm going to make the decision that I would go Wheeler in cash games. I think you could, make the case to play him, over Strider in GPPs, get more exposure to Wheeler, given the ownership. So it's just, it's a thin argument. It's not a sure thing by any means, but I do lean Wheeler as my top pitcher on FanDuel.
Yeah. By the way, if he was on DK, it would just double barrel. Let's have a good time. Let's kick 80 points for our pitchers, and let's just figure the bats out, right? But unfortunately, that's not something we can do. That'd be a lot of fun, and I'm curious how that would have worked out. But yeah, Red Scow's asking, the reason why we're on early is because FanDuel is including that Philadelphia-Detroit game. DK is not. DK is just a 4-game slate that starts at 7:07 with Houston and Toronto. We did want to appease the FanDuel slate, and then, of course, we'll talk the DK slate as well. Crunch time comes on around 5:30. They'll take you up the FanDuel lock if they need to, if necessary. I'm sure they'll stick around and answer any questions and cover whatever they need to DK-wise. But, yeah, it's baseball. It's not basketball where you're going to get news 20 minutes before and everything changes. So we essentially will have all the lineups, and they'll figure it out when crunch time comes on. But we're just knocking out both slates and figured this was the best course of action. And again, I want to see what Roth had to say because he mentioned in the weather report, just giving it a refresh if I can find it. I had it before. Basically suggesting that as the day progresses, it might get a little bit dicier around first pitch for Philadelphia. So you want to keep our eye on that. So he's got a yellow-orange in Philly. I'll just read what it says. Air quality here stays pretty good until around game time. Then it drops into unhealthy levels, which I read that. That seemed like a concerning sentence. I still think they likely just play ball, but this is the game to watch smoke-wise. There's also a chance of some showers in game. So just be aware of that. Have your alerts on, see what Roth has to say. But this could be an issue. It's the very first game of the slate. So, Tim, I imagine we will know. Would you think it's possible they start this game and like at the third inning they say, okay, these levels are getting outrageous? And like, I don't know how you want to be like amateur meteorologist or whatever person. What do they call a person that analyzes smoke? I'm not really sure. but is that a possibility?
Whatever it is, whatever they call it, I'm not it. But, I will say that I think if they're going to play this game, they're going to play this game. I know that the air quality in the Mid-Atlantic yesterday was unbelievably bad, and it has improved drastically. Because I've been kind of watching the news quite a bit today. I do think that we're gonna know, and I think if they play ball, they're gonna play ball. That's my take. That's how I'm personally gonna be managing my money around this game. So that's all I can say. I can't guarantee anything else other than that. Like, I'm probably going to play Wheeler in my single entry team. I don't usually play cash on Fanduel, but I probably am going to be playing Wheeler in a single entry. So that's all I can say is that I really do firmly think that if they were going to cancel this game, they'd already do it.
Are you making one cash lineup and like one single entry main lineup, or how are you doing that as far as FanDuel?
I'm just like on FanDuel, I'm just playing one single entry team, and then on DK, I'm going to play cash and then a single entry team.
It is interesting. Strider's getting 33% as far as the ownership. Wheeler 27. So the two of them collectively getting 60% plus. Detmers getting 13%. He's kind of the SP2 on DK as well. If you're looking for a cheapie, the one that's kind of lost in the shuffle is Framber Valdez. It was just, obviously a quality start machine, a ground ball machine, not the best matchup in the world in Toronto. Toronto, not surprisingly, they are closing the roof tonight because of, again, the issues with the smoke. He's just getting 6% ownership. Verlander just 5 versus Atlanta. Barrios 5, and then Savali getting 3. And Reese Olson, I'm told that's a person who's throwing baseballs for Detroit tonight. He's getting 1% ownership. Tyler Holton is another person. I trust Lineup HQ that they've confirmed that Tyler Holton is. Do you know who Tyler Holton is? Do we know who Tyler Holton is? That is a person.
I feel like I'm supposed to know who these people are, but I don't. I have no idea who this person is. Plus, he's projected to. He's just an opener.
He's the opener.
He's just projected for 22 pitches. So I don't think we really need to worry about who Tyler Holton is, but I don't know who he is.
He's got a family. Come on, I hope he's well.
I'm sure they're very nice people.
Did you listen to the Ellie De La Cruz homer yesterday? Did you happen to see the De La Cruz's homer last night, his first homer of his career? Did you catch it by chance?
I didn't. I faded him. He was 75% owned in single entry, and so that was the end of. What's funny? I knew the Dodgers were going to be chalk. Yeah. I did not think that like Mookie Betts would be like 55% owned. Like that's really high. Like, these ownerships are getting to be like ridiculously high. I'm not, and it's baseball.
It's not basketball, it's baseball.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's not basketball here. Like I was stunned when we flipped over the cards. I wasn't surprised by De La Cruz, but I was surprised at how high the Dodgers were. That was like sky high.
I don't know if you put the day slate, but De La Cruz was facing Kershaw, and he still was pretty cheap. And somebody in chat said he was 50% owned. I saw on my single entry he was pretty heavily owned as well. Like the people just paired Kershaw and De La Cruz and didn't care about whatever sort of rules. Like, and it was a short slate, obviously. And
right.
I did the same thing for what it's worth. I played them both on my main team just because super cheap, and I wanted Kershaw and save some salary and spend up on some other bats. But the reason why I asked that is because the announcer, that was the call when De La Cruz hit the homer. He said that ball had a family because he absolutely annihilated it. Just a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Obviously he's not going to do this every single game. He didn't do it today. Today he did steal a base though. I think his first career stolen base. So fun having him in the league for sure. On DK, as far as ownership, we're looking at. Let me give a refresh, by the way. And again, DK is just 4 games because that New York-Chicago game 2, is not going to accumulate any fantasy points for you. Spencer Strider, 62% ownership. Detmers at 38%. That's partially because he's 6.5K. Framber, 17%. Verlander, 16. Savali, 14. Barrios, 13. Matt Dermody, again, I've been told he's real. He's old. He's real. He's old. He's not a prospect. He's throwing baseballs today for Boston. He's 4K, so like that's the nicest thing we can say about him, I suppose. He's just getting 10-11% as far as ownership. what is your approach? Or before we do that, I guess what's your general approach as far as a slate? And you can talk big picture, and jump back and forth with Fanduel and DK. Fanduel's got some really nice prices in those Phillies still as well, which we can kind of dig into. It's a little bit different depending on where you're shopping, but no team, last I saw, unless we've had a spike in team total, has above 5 as far as a team total. Atlanta, I think, was the closest at 4.97, 4.96 if you want to get all technical. That's where we're at right now. So it's not a great offensive slate. It's not a great pitching slate. It's like one of those that's sort of like in the middle. But what is your mode of attack?
Well, it's big differences today between FanDuel and DraftKings. Not only is there Wheeler, but then there's the Phillies bats who are priced very, very affordably, like across the board, other than Bryce Harper, who's a little bit expensive. But guys like Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto and Trey Turner, it's a really very, very, very different slate between the sites today. Philly is my top stack on the FanDuel slate. It's just, I really like their prices. You can still pitch Strider if you want to. They're cheap enough that you can still pitch Strider, or you could go down to Wheeler, or whatever you want to do. But I think they're way too cheap. They're gonna have some ownership. It's gonna be really hard to be sneaky on this slate. So the Phillies to me are the top stack on FanDuel. So they're the team that I want to get the most of, and I think they're good for any kind of format that you're playing. And FanDuel also has some really cheap Cleveland bats also, and Angels. So it's so easy to get like a full Philly stack and then just kind of punt some other positions and get a top pitcher. So I think for me, that's for FanDuel, that's my favorite kind of build by far.
You mentioned the Angels. Joe Adell is expected to be in the lineup today for the Angels, which, obviously former monster prospect. And if he can kind of sort of, I was going to say sort of pattern after Kelnick, right, in Seattle, sort of guys that were quad A players that were smashing in AAA and just whatever reason scuffling in the majors. But we're at least projecting him to play tonight. 2.5 on DK. I think he's 2.5 on FanDuel as well. Looks like a really interesting salary saver. Just the power. When he hits it, the power is really legit there for Adele. Just kind of want to monitor that. We don't have an Angels lineup just yet, right? Yeah, 9:30 is the start for that game. So probably not getting that one anytime soon, but we're presuming he's going to be in the lineup facing Drew Smiley, which feels like a pretty good spot for him. You mentioned, by the way, Mr. Gerg was making a joke. Let's just kind of go back for a second. He was joking about the two of us being in alignment. You're going to feel better now. We had the opposite take on the expert survey. So
good. All right, that makes me feel a lot better. I was starting to get a little nervous about my expert qualifications, So I feel better now.
So my hot take, and these are hot takes, right? These aren't things we reject. Like, it's not a 50-50 call, right? You're supposed to be ambitious, right? Yep. Otherwise, what's the point? My hot take was the Braves hit 4+ homers and score 10+ runs. And your hot take, of course, I assume you did not forget, Justin Verlander, who's playing against the Braves, will have 8 strikeouts and get the W. And my sort of thought process is this slate is not great. And I'm happy to homer hunt, right? If I can homer hunt. It's the best ballpark for weather this evening in Atlanta. Temperature-wise, just a construction of the ballpark as is. Nobody has a higher homer per 9 this season as far as starting pitchers this season than Justin Verlander. Just amongst the 9 guys, one of them, I guess we don't have any data on. He's not picked just yet this year, but he gives up 1.5 homers per 9. Nobody else gives up more than a homer per 9. Just kind of looking at that, like not a lot of homer-happy pitchers on this slate. Smiley 0.96, Strider 0.9, Detmers 0.89. Barrios 0.88. Some of these guys lucky as far as homering the fly ball, like Verlander 13%, and the highest one is Framber Valdez at 14.6%. But he's another guy that just all his ground balls, he doesn't give up homers at all. Essentially 0.68, and it just feels like a slate where just a couple homers might win it. That's kind of where I'm at, and I'm just like, if you get on the 2 or 3, and now certainly a team could put up 15 runs, and this is all nonsense. It doesn't matter. And they're facing the shortstop in the 8th inning. They get a couple more cheapies. But on short slates, these kind of things happen. They're in the realm of possibilities where there's like 3 homers that are hit. And if you get 2 or 3 of them, there you go. And that's the other part of it is like, I don't feel like I absolutely have to like fully stack everything. I don't know if that's your thought process as well. I'm happy. Like if I land on like a 3-2-2-1 build that I really like, and all these guys are capable of doing something, whatever.
I think it depends. I think it depends on the size of the contest.
Sure, that matters too. Yeah,
I'd rather be more aggressive with my stacking and correlation in a bigger field. But if you're playing like the 121 single in on DraftKings, and you wanted to play like a 3-2-2-1, I think that's cool. Like I don't really have too much of a problem with that. If I'm playing the $15 150 max, I want to be a lot more aggressive stacking.
I hear you.
Yeah. And I just want to justify my Verlander hot take. Yes, it is a hot take, but I do actually kind of like Verlander today. At least on DK. My justification of that is, it's ownership. He's not going to be that high owned. It's the chalk is going to be Strider and Detmers. And that's okay. It's not horrible, but I think Verlander does have the capability. Like maybe he doesn't get 8 strikeouts, but I think he has the capability to get enough Ks to shut down this Atlanta team. And I want to win somebody a tournament, and so I think that's just a good way of getting off a chalky duo pitching and have a ceiling. Obviously, Verlander is way past his prime. Obviously, Atlanta is an amazing offense, but given the ownership, and I think he does have a ceiling. So I'm honestly considering going Strider Verlander in my GPP single entry team today. Just because I don't really want to play Detmers, just because he's going to be chalky. He's going to be 40% owned. Like if we go to when I play like the 121 or the 254 max, he's going to be even higher than that probably. So I mean, when we do ownership, this is just for the $15 big field stuff. I mean, he's going to be even higher owned in the higher dollar stuff. So it's like, I don't know if I might do it, but I'm leaning towards no. I'm leaning towards I don't necessarily want to play Reed Detmers at 50% owned.
I don't want to either, and I don't want to play Verlander. So I'm trying to.
That's fine too. That's fine too. I mean, the other route could be to go to Valdez and double pay it for pitching. If you do that, though, I think
want the Braves.
Yeah. Okay, but they're expensive.
Yes, that's the quandary. There's cheap Braves for what it's worth. Like it's hard to. You probably can get like one of like Acuna or I guess one of Acuna or Olsen. You might be able to get one of them. I haven't built it out just yet. There's some cheap stuff out there, but that's kind of where I'm at on it, and just sort of. But the Verlander thing is like, he gives a lot of fly balls. He's protected by that ballpark there in New York, and maybe his balls that kind of die on the warning track will go over the fence. And again, I'm just kind of sort of somewhat homer hunting, and the Ks are down this year too. Like you said, he's a little bit past his prime. Some of these guys never had a prime, but he certainly had a prime. 20.5% as far as his Ks this year, which is kind of pedestrian for Verlander, right? The swinging strike rate, one of the worst in the slate, 8.7%. So it's not like he's been unlucky when it comes to that. Like his Ks are his Ks for a reason. 36 per innings is what we have. That's the sample we're working with. And he's been a little bit lucky as far as BABIP as well. Look, it's not like I have the hot take one way, you have the hot take the other way. Most likely, it's something in the middle happens, right? We're talking about like the 99th percentile and the first percentile, whatever it is. The most likely scenario is that something happens in the middle, but we're talking about shooting for first in tournaments, and that's the route I'm taking. I don't know how popular Atlanta is going to be. I don't think I'm on an island with Atlanta. They do have the highest total, but running optimal stuff, and I guess you've done it as well. And I did it before the show, but maybe things have changed. It's a lot of Angels, right? The Angels are the most popular.
It's going to be Strider, Detmers, and Angels, right? I mean, that's gonna be. And for what it's worth, I kind of like the Angels today, as much as I hate recommending chalky bats, but I really like them today. But
I'm running it right now, and yeah, okay, so this is DK for what it's worth. Got a roster 2 pitchers. We're getting 68% Strider, 61% Detmers. I added some variants to it. 22% Verlander, 16% Barrios, 13% Valdez. Yeah, I'd love to try to make Strider and Valdez work if possible. Like Dermody, just because he's 4K, he's getting 9%. And as far as the most popular hitters that we're seeing amongst all the hitters, Ahmed Rosario, 65%. Otani, left on left, doesn't care, 55%. Josh Bell, 51%. Jordan, 41. So like if you swap out Jordan for Acuna, right, that's basically the same as far as the asking price. And Taylor Ward's getting a lot of ownership. Brandon Drury is. I'm not sure if Adele is. I thought Adele might get some as a cheapie. He's only getting 10%, which is kind of interesting.
So if you go Strider Valdez, you have 34.50 per bat. It's doable.
You can make it work, I think.
You can make it work. It'd be tough to I don't know, because then it's like you got to go like Ward, Adele. Trying to think who else, like who's like another cheap, like super cheapy. Oh, like Gomes. Maybe not Gomes, but
the cheapest Chicago catcher is if he cracks the lineup. What's his name? Well, they've been running out Amaya. Amaya's 2.4. He's got some power.
Yeah, or you could go Trey Mancini, 2,300.
He's been kind of terrible this year, right? Am I wrong to say that? I feel like he's been terrible.
I think he has been terrible, but yeah, I mean, all you're trying to do is do a different lineup construction, right? Like, and if Detmers is going to be chalk, and he has a bad game and you're on a couple cubbies, right? I mean, that's, I think our job is try to get, people to try to build some kind of unique lineups, right? That can have a ceiling, that can, do well in a large field tournament.
Costas, another cheap pop hitter at 2.7. I'm not sure if you mentioned him. He's actually batting 5th today for Boston. Feels like he's moved up. Vientos in the lineup. It's nice to see that, but I think he's in there because Alonso's not playing, and also he's facing Strider. So, whatever. He's got a lot of power.
I'm not goofing around with Mets. I don't know.
That's it. Just we're not playing the Mets. So that's the thing. You're making 1 or 2 lineups. I'm making only 3 or 4. If we were making hundreds or like 100 hypothetically, would you make the ultimate leverage stack? Like the Mets do have some good names over there, and Strider he's gotten hit a couple times this year. It's happened before. The ballpark is good. You're locked in for 9 innings. There's no polar bear, which is kind of an issue, but they're cheaper too, and you probably can get a nice stack around the Mets. You're talking large field.
Yeah, if I'm maxing the 150, I got 150 teams. I don't know. Maybe 3 or 4 secondary stacks of them. I don't think I'd do any 5-mans.
But some questions in chat. I've been neglecting y'all. I apologize. Do hit that like button. We'd appreciate it. Some people are probably just tuning in now and saying, like, what's just in the middle of conversation? Why are we not talking nonsense? The show just started. Started a half hour ago. We're on early because we're appeasing the Fanduel slate. Fanduel starts at 6 o'clock. We'll take you guys all the way up to the Fanduel lock. Of course, we're talking DraftKings as well, too. Crunch Time crew comes in about a half hour. I believe it's Dave Potts. Cheeseisgood. STL Cards coming in fired up. I'm sure he'll have something nice to say about his Cardinals, who I think are still dead last in their division. It's been a rough year. He took a 10-day road trip and saw them lose to the Pirates a couple times, and I think Cleveland. So I love reading his articles. He's like so bitter about it. I appreciate that he still cares. I've lost some of my fandom over the years. I don't know if you have or not. I feel like you have as well.
I've lost all of mine basically.
If you were like 18 years old, you would have been so miserable about the Bruins getting knocked out by the Panthers.
Yes,
you're over that now. You still would be upset about it.
Yeah. Like when I was 18, if that were to happen, I would have been beside myself for like a month. But now I was like, whatever. No, whatever. I got over it.
I see these football games and these guys in the crowd like all painted up and like they're wearing like the pads, and I'm like, you're 50 years old. Like you still care this much? It's cool. Like I guess I can appreciate it, but I can't believe it. I don't know where you're getting it from, but good for them. If it makes them happy, hey, have at it. Enjoy yourself. Shannon says Matt Dermody and Randy Vasquez DK double stack. Well, Randy Vasquez is going to get you 0 fantasy points, so I would not roster him.
Yeah, just another reminder: do not play White Sox Yankees. They are not on the slate. I've been confused about that all day, also, as Dean knows. So
yes,
yeah.
I didn't want to out you publicly. I was kind about it. I slid in your DMs.
I made a mistake earlier, and Meansy called me out. So that was my second mess up. Yeah. So I've been struggling all day with that. So do not play anybody from the White Sox Yankee game because it's not on the slate.
So I don't know if this is like the RotoGrinders like Google Chrome thing, or is this is DK that it turns all the players in Chicago and New York on DraftKings red. But yeah, there's a reason why they're red. You don't want to play them because they're not playable. And there's even like a note that says, what does it say at the top? Draft information. The game between Chicago and New York has the second game of a doubleheader. Players will not accrue points. Please check your lineup. So there's a couple warnings there, but if you're not paying attention, you certainly could get caught off guard here. I'm not sure. I assume we kicked them out of our lineup HQ, but I turned it to like 0 players. From each team. I went to like players from each team to 0 when I was building stuff out, just in case. But I assume it's since adjusted.
They've been kicked out of HQ, but they're still showing up in some of our other tools.
Oh, well, that's not good. Well, hopefully that gets cleaned up. But yeah, obviously that will be bad. Don't play any Yankees. So Alex has an interesting thought. Like the Phillies going to be overowned. Will they be overowned or underowned because of them not being on the DK slate? Does that matter? So I feel like, generally speaking, I don't know if this is kind of our fault or just the fault of the entire industry, DK tends to drive the conversation more when it comes to like overall thought process when it comes to slates. Maybe because it's like there's more decision points, 2 pitchers, and just kind of the way their lineup construction works. So like there's not a lot, maybe there's less content on there out in the ether on Philadelphia. It's an interesting thought. But are you going to get these Phillies low owned? I don't think so because like the prices are really, really good. Yeah.
But I get the person did ask if they're going to be over owned though. And that there's a difference between being owned and over owned. Right. And so I don't know if they're going to be over owned because we still have like Ohtani as the highest owned. We have J-Ram higher owned than Schwarber. We have Jordan and Trout hanging around that same ownership percentage as guys like Schwarber. So I don't think if you're worried about being over-owned, I'm not too concerned about that. But they're not going to be sneaky. They are going to be owned. I'm not convinced they're going to be over-owned, though.
So questions in chat. This is a good one. So actually, apparently there was several people. Eric himself said that was me. I tuned in late or early or presumably on time. Like he didn't know any different. That's fine. Quick pitching recap. We kind of done like an overview of this slate, sort of jumping back and forth as far as stacks and as far as pitchers. That's the way this show goes. Just a conversation about the slate. And I like when you sort of we're thinking about how we're going to build our lineups. And obviously when crunch time comes in, they're going to go around the horn and get their favorite players position by position, their favorite pitchers, their favorite stacks. And, it's spoon fed that way, but this sort of happens more organically. And if we miss something, the chat tends to bring it up. And yeah, do that right now. Please join the conversation. If there's anything you want us to talk about regarding the slate, any sort of thought process, specific players, fire away. We're happy to answer. Give us the details. They'll let us know if it's for DraftKings or if it's for Fanduel, if it's cash, 50-50 contest, if it's for tournament, single entry, large field. That stuff does help. Give me the pitcher recap. And I say recap, but we sort of like blew past. We mentioned Detmers is chalky. We didn't really get all the reasons why. We should talk about that, I suppose. As an SP2, he's pretty chalky. And we mentioned Framber Valdez is good. He's pretty expensive, right? But, he's just like super, super solid, reliable quality start. The ballpark, the matchup against Toronto, not necessarily ideal, but he's just so good. And he gets all his ground balls. This Toronto offense has been kind of underwhelming this season by their standards, I want to say. At least in my head, I feel like that's true. I've not looked at the numbers like specifically. I feel like they've underwhelmed. Vladdy has 0 homers all season long in Toronto. That seems bad. Just as many as you and I, as far as homers in Toronto. But yeah, give me the summary and tell me why Reed Detmers is popping as an SP2 player on DraftKings.
I mean, so he's got 26% K rate, I believe. He's had some really, really bad BABIP this year, which has skewed his numbers not in his favor. He is $6,500 against the Cubs, which is extremely, extremely cheap. I certainly am fine with him in any format. He's just going to be extremely high owned. That's the only thing that I have bad to say about him. He should be able to handle this team, but I'm just hesitant that this ownership's going to get very, very steamed up. Like if you're playing cash games, you should probably just go Strider, Detmers, and then you can get up to guys like Trout and whoever else, like Trout, Otani, Ward, something like that. You can do that. I'm just a little bit skeptical in large field. But I mean, he could end up being optimal. But I mean that there are obviously reasons why he's chalk, and I think that they're good reasons and they're valid reasons. But it's just when you look at that ERA, which is over 5, you get a little scared. But his BABIP is, I think, somewhere around 380.
I got it. It's 377. His ERA is 5.15 and his Sierra is 4. So, like you said, a little bit unlucky. Left on base is too low as well, just 63% strand rate. And the BABIP, 377. He's been lucky homer to fly ball. If there's one thing he's been lucky with, just 9.1% homer to fly ball. But, and the swing and strike rate actually suggests a little bit that maybe he's been unlucky with just getting 26.4% Ks. The swing and strike rate is the second highest in the slate, almost at 14%. So,
it's just the ownership for me. That's all it is. It's just like, we have so few options, such a small slate. We've got this pretty, I don't know, we're going to have a lot of concentrated ownership between Strider and Detmers. But I mean, if you want to play it, then by all means play it. And if you're playing cash games, that should be your pairing on DK.
And on FanDuel, you said you prefer a slight lean. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to hear if Roth has anything to say about this smoke situation. But if it seems as if the air quality is the same as it has been, and it looks like they're going to play ball, I'd rather play Wheeler than Strider in cash games.
I wanted to see if maybe the Phillies kind of tweeted something out, just kind of let people know, like, to come to the game, that kind of thing. And you think if they're going to cancel it, they probably would have done it by now, right? Like it's an hour.
That's what I would think. Why bring fans to the ballpark if you're concerned about air quality? You should have canceled the game 2-3 hours ago. I don't see that. I feel like they're going to be playing ball.
Their last tweet, Philadelphia Phillies, is 2 hours ago, and it's just their starting lineup. So again, if you want to be a cynic, you say you have them come to the ballpark and eat some hot dogs and drink some beer and then pay for parking and then whatever, they get screwed. But, I wouldn't think that's what's motivating them.
I don't know. I don't think that's happening. Considering how big of a story this is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they would do that.
It's such a big story. I don't know if you know, Roth was on the Weather Channel today with Jim Cantor. What's the big guy on the I don't watch the Weather Channel, but I know the guy's name. Yeah, so he was talking some weather and sports on the Weather Channel earlier today. So Jim Cantor, is that it? Does that sound right? Isn't he the guy that's always like in the Hurricanes?
I mean, it's always just cold where I live, Dean. So I don't really have to watch the Weather Channel to know that it's just cold.
Yeah. In my time in Florida, I've been through a few hurricanes, so we know about that.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So more questions in chat. Mr. Richard wants to know, came in late. Are there any SBs we can X out on DK for single entry tournaments? Okay.
I think so.
I think so too. But go ahead. How many do you think we can X out for single entry?
Well, it's those fellows that are playing for the Tigers. Oh no, that's FanDuel. That's
correct.
FanDuel, right? Yeah. So they want DK.
Savali. Single entry. I'm not playing
single
Savali.
entry. Single entry. Okay, that's fine.
Smiley.
I think you can X them out.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you want to run 4K Dermody. I guess you can, but I don't think I will.
I think it'd be Savelli, Smiley, and Dermody from my X out. I wouldn't bother with those 3 guys in single entry.
Yeah.
I'm not really, for what it's, I mean, I'm not really a fan of Barrios today. I like Houston quite a bit. He isn't somebody that I would consider. And for someone that does play exclusively single entries, he's not somebody that I'm even thinking about rostering. So, I mean, in my mind, he's getting X'd out, but that doesn't necessarily mean everybody has to think that way.
What do you think of Houston as like a single entry team offensively?
I love it. They're my favorite pivot away from the Angels. They're my number 2.
How would you build it? It's pretty standard. It's pretty straightforward, right? We have Altuve's obviously back in this lineup. They are still. They changed it. Devon's not leading off anymore. It's Pena, Altuve, Alvarez, Bregman. Bregman's back. He rested yesterday. Tucker, Abreu, McCormick, Myers, Maldonado. They're kind of like Atlanta, where they have these cheap, sort of interchangeable outfielders. Today it's McCormick and Myers. Hard to get excited about them. Maldonado's your cheap catcher. But like it's just, obviously, ideally, you want to get Jordan and Tucker and who would you prioritize? Is Jordan the first priority?
Yeah, it would definitely be Jordan and then Tucker. I'm trying to see if I go Strider and Detmers and Jordan, and then I go Tucker, what that leaves me with. Leaves me with $3,400 left. That's pretty easy to do.
You can make that work, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Kyle Tucker's not showing up with only 12% ownership, which on such a short slate and in the talent level that he has, I think that's a really strong tournament play. Jordan's coming in with 31%, which I think is much more appropriate. But Tucker at 12, I think, is a really solid. Maybe you could even use him as a one-off at that ownership.
I know you're not a big season-long guy, but Tucker is he was like a late first round, early second pick this year in season-long. Kind of disappointing season for him from that perspective. People were expecting him to take a little bit more of a leap. Just 8 homers so far this season. I think he's cheaper on Fanduel, right? He's 5K on DKs. He's still like 3.4 on Fanduel. Is that about right? 3.4, 3.5, somewhere in that area.
Let me look.
It's typically what he has been. 3.4, yeah, 3.4 on Fanduel. So, bit more appealing as far as the price over there. Hoosiers Hang Banners wants me to power rank Hurricanes that have hit Florida. Hurricane Andrew, that's the chalk for sure. Yeah, that's the one that hits early 90s. I remember it hit during the time of the World Series, and I remember listening
wasn't Andrew 94?
Maybe, I'm not sure. It's early 90s, like 92, 93, 94, something like that. Katrina. No, well, Katrina was why am I power ranking Hurricanes? That really beat up New Orleans. But Irma was another one. That's the contrarian. It's so weird that they give Hurricanes names. That's a whole other conversation. Like I'm sure every hacky comedian has kind of worked on that bit. But it's Kirkwood's in chat. Kirky's making fun of me for liking wraps. Like who doesn't like a wrap? Like a chicken wrap or like a ham and cheese wrap?
But that's not what you said, Dean. That isn't what you said. You didn't say a chicken wrap or whatever. You just said a wrap, and then you were like, I don't know, a wrap. Like you didn't fill it with any kind of ingredient. You just said I'm gonna have a wrap for dinner.
Well, I mean, use your imagination. What do you want to throw in? You can throw in some ham, some turkey, some cheese, some pickles, some olives.
The question was to you, and you just said, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna have a wrap. I expect that kind of answer out of me, who's not so good and polished behind the mic. But you're like, I don't know. I'm just gonna have a wrap.
Sometimes you got to leave a little bit of mystery out there for the people. But according to the chat, I'm hearing that there's some BVP for Jose Abreu facing Jose Barrios. And Jose Abreu, the BVP, when he established this, he was actually good at hitting baseballs. I will just throw that out there. It is a big sample size. 59 at-bats, 17 hits, 12 singles, 2 doubles, 3 homers, a bunch of strikeouts, 16 strikeouts. I guess it's not a bunch. So it's a fair bit. Just 1 walk, though. So he's going to he's probably not going to walk if that's something for you to get excited about. And they're asking about Caesar dressing. Like, good Lord, no chance. Or mayo, that's like the worst.
Mayo's bad, but I don't know what your beef is with Caesar's dressing. That's amazing.
I just, as a general rule, like dressing, I'm out. That's it. Deal breaker. Across the board.
So I'm envisioning this wrap is just being like a piece of ham and a piece of cheese, and that's it, and we're done. That's what's. I mean, I don't know.
I would not say a piece of ham. I would. It would be a legitimate size. It's not like an appetizer bite. Not pita bread, but a wrap.
What about mustard?
Mustard's you got it. It's okay. It's acceptable. I'm not going to return it if it has mustard. A little bit, just a little bit, but it's not necessary. Not necessary.
We did get an Angels lineup out, and I think it's exactly what we thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Ward, Ohtani, Trout, Drury, Urshela, Adele, Rengifo, Wallach, and Nito.
I got into I was going to say an argument or debate. Somebody was trying to tell me how amazing this bread day was that they had at this French restaurant. And I was trying to tell them that bread has a ceiling, right? Bread has a ceiling. No matter how amazing this bread is, the a la carte, I'm just like the bread and butter, whatever you want to throw it on there. Not with any meat, any nonsense, just a la carte. Like this, it was a 10. It's like, it's not possible. Bread cannot be a 10 by itself. It's like, the Olympics, you watched the Olympics before, right? You've seen the Olympics? I'm sure you've seen it. They're diving. They dive in the Olympics. And then diving is really interesting because some dives, no matter how amazing you nail it, like no splash, you hit it perfectly, you still can't get a 10 because the degree of difficulty is so low. That's bread. You nail bread. You totally nail it, and it's still like a 7. That's the best you can do.
I disagree. I really do. I don't agree with that take.
I was told I need to go to France because I missed out.
You haven't had great bread is your issue. That's your issue, Dean.
Their counter was like, what about bagels? And I thought that was a good counter because when you think, I'm talking about like bread on the table you get in a restaurant or something like that. Even if it's a fancy French restaurant.
What are you worried about? What restaurant you're going to? All you're ordering is a wrap. Is just like a wrap, 2 pieces of cheese, and some kind of deli meat, and that's it. That's all you're gonna have.
Well, I mean, this is not like my universal meal indefinitely. It's like I'm not pot committed from like this day forward. It's just, but like as a home meal, like a wrap is spectacular. It's super easy. You can't botch it, can't blow it up, right? It's super reliable. I wouldn't frown on the wrap. Is all I'm saying. Okay. More questions from chats. Apparently Tucker's got small BVP. I've not even considered what that could be. It can't be all that much. Kirkwood's in chat just hanging out. I don't know if he's going to drop any of his Juggalo bombs. He was upset that we talked about some season long, but that's just, hey, man, that's what we do on a 4-game/5-game slate. That's what we're doing. What do you want us to talk about, Kirkwood? We're happy to delve into your world. Do you have any homer calls to people? The people like homer calls. Who's going yard? Do you feel ambitious? You want to give somebody a little bit goofy off the board? You want to give the chalk?
Let's look at scores and odds real quick. Let's pull up some odds so I can actually, maybe give somebody a bet here or there. I do want to see what Houston has for home run odds.
I did think it was interesting, but I mentioned it before, kind of in passing. All the pitchers today, with the exception of Verlander, they're not giving up homers this year. Everybody's giving up less than a homer per 9. Verlander at 1.5, but everybody else less than 1. Just so like it's just again, these are small samples. We're talking about a sample of just one as far as one slate, but it doesn't feel like a slate that's going to be loaded with homers.
I agree with that. I do like Kyle Tucker at plus 410.
Okay, that's not bad.
That's not bad. Trying to think what else.
We should shout out Britt, by the way. Britt's been doing he's been smashing on scores and odds for all your sports player prop needs, like sides, totals, all that stuff, and not just Britt, but not just baseball, all sorts of sports, any sport you can think of. There's takes on there. Notorious and SDL do golf. Other people do golf as well. Grant does the scores and odds show on the scores and odds channel. Do subscribe to that channel as well too while you're at it. But I think Britt's 14 of his last 15 or so taking sides and totals in baseball. So good for him. He said, I saw he tweeted out he already has one ready to go for tomorrow. So it's a pretty good streak. If you believe in hot streaks, I think he's 14-1. That's pretty good.
He's been on fire.
There you go. Do check out the scores and odds. Kirkwood's not giving us a Juggalo bomb. That's unfortunate. So maybe he'll give one. I guess he needs Hanniger to do something. I kind of need Hanniger to do something too. I'm sort of I'm teetering, I think, in the early slate of like maybe I'll cash, maybe I won't. What's going on in that early game?
I think
Did you bet
I'm
going to play the first slate?
I played the first slate. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do pretty well.
Oh, do we have a live sweat going on?
No, not a live. No. But I mean, just like a 3x slate. Young Gomes plus 600 on Fanduel.
I don't hate that. Versus the lefty. It's pretty decent odds.
We did have Anthony Rendon in our projected Angels lineup, and he is not in. Just so everybody knows,
it's over, right? Can we say it? Can we say it's over for Rendon? It's over.
Is it? Do you think it's over?
I think it's over. I don't know, man. It's the Angels certainly hope it's not over because I think they're still owing him a bunch of money. But either he's hurt or he's terrible, right? Like that's basically been his tenure with the Angels. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
he's not been good.
That's been a bad signing. That is for darn sure. Yes.
Yeah, they have a tendency to do that. Pujols, you can say Mo Vaughn if you want to go really far back.
Wow, Mo Vaughn. I haven't heard that name in a long time. I used to live in the same apartment or like condominium complex as Mo Vaughn.
Yeah, in Boston,
yep.
I assume.
Providence.
Okay, there, fair enough. We have a crunch time coming in about 5 minutes or so. Again, the FanDuel site, they lock at 6. I don't want to cheat the time. It was like 6:05 or 6:10 or something like that for the Philadelphia game. That game is not on the DraftKings slate. DraftKings, they start at 7:07. Do not be fooled. Do not play the Yankees on DraftKings. And a reminder for those that are just coming in now, you can actually click on the names, but I believe the names are red. And it says, they're going to accrue 0 fantasy points. They're currently in the middle of playing game 1 of a doubleheader, 4-4 in the 5th for those that care. We do have crunch time coming in now. We have STL Cards. We have Dave Potts. We have Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth. Roth, we were trying to figure out this Philadelphia game. They've said nothing. There was one sentence in your blurb that was somewhat concerning to me. You wrote basically for the Philadelphia game, air quality here stays pretty good until around game time. Then it drops to unhealthy levels. And unhealthy levels, that sentence kind of scared me, that term. But we're assuming they're going to play, as far as we know.
I think so. I just think it's pretty much now or never. Right? Like, I think they would have told us already. I think they're going to play. The air quality will dip tonight, but I just, can you imagine, Dean, that they start a game and then halfway through they're like, no, never mind, it got too smoky. I can't fathom that, right?
Yeah. PR does.
Let's not say unfathomable.
Yeah,
but unlikely.
Yeah. So being that I think it starts well enough, even if some smoke does move in, I think they're just going to play baseball in Philly.
But it's going to increasingly get worse. But yeah, that's the thing, is I'm hoping that it'd be very strange that then they cancel the game in the 5th inning or whatever.
Right.
But is it going to go up as far as you can tell, or is there a way to gauge what the air quality is going to be 5 hours from now? Can we do that? Do we have that technology?
Yeah, I can't tell you what the exact numbers are, but I can tell you that right now it's pretty good. And it should be maybe around 100 by 8 o'clock or so.
And tell us what that means. What is 100 relative to?
Yeah. That's my bad.
It was good. 100's good in school.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sorry. The first Yankees game that got postponed was between 300 and 400 AQI, which is off the charts bad. Over 150, I think, is considered unhealthy. So 100 is it's not good, but it's probably still good enough. And I think that's what we're dealing with. It's not great, but it's good enough. So I think they're going to play.
Fair enough. All right, so I'm going to play some Phillies. I'm going to assume it's not going to be an issue, but obviously stay tuned. Something can change. I would imagine they would have put something out by now, a half hour before the game. It just seems like a terrible idea to have people come down and then say, oh, our bad. We have STL cards here as well. Cards. I'm looking forward to. I think we're together on Sirius this weekend. Is that correct? I believe we are. Are we paired together?
I believe so.
We're going to talk for 2 hours about your road trip, your STL Cardinals road trip.
It was absolutely miserable. I hated it.
Save this energy.
And we went to 4 games. They lost all of them. My wife broke her wrist. It's just it's everything imaginable that could go wrong on a vacation literally happened to us in 10 days.
A lot of poor bad going on.
Was Wally World open at least?
What's that?
Was Wally World open at least at the end of the trip, or was Wally World also closed? Never mind.
As in, is this a Walmart joke? This is a movie reference that's going over my head.
It is.
I'm with you, Dean. Good job.
Yeah. I figured if I can go 1 for 3 or 1 for 4, I'll take it. I'm sorry to hear about your wife, Rapper. Well, could you say this? We could say one nice thing. Pittsburgh. You were in Pittsburgh. Best view in baseball? Yes or no?
Yeah. Other than the fact that the ticket we had 1 game tickets where I wanted to sit way up to get the views of the skyline, and my listed seat was literally right behind a pole, which feels suboptimal and was not disclosed to me in the ticket purchasing process. But there were enough open seats where I simply moved around the pole. But yeah, it's a beautiful park. My view is clouded by the team getting swept and also getting walked off in the game we went to in Cleveland. But other than that, it was also horrible. So we're back. I've never been so ready to just get back into the daily routine after a trip.
Fair enough. Tim, you got anything else with the boys before you yield to the Fanduel sponsored Crunch Time?
Nope. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. It was fun. Tim, 1 word to describe our show. What do you have? Give me 1 word.
Was not fun, Dean. I know
two
that's
words.
what you want.
Tolerable.
Decent. It was decent, Dean.
Fair enough. That was Tim. I was Dean. You got Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth taking us home here for the Fanduel sponsor Crunch Time. Roth, take it away.
Appreciate it. Good stuff as always. Decent from Tim, by the way, is that's as good as it gets. So that is high praise there. Hey, joined by 2 of the sharpest minds in the biz here. Welcome to it. This is Crunch Time. This show is sponsored by FanDuel. We bring 2 really, really sharp people. You know these guys. We got Dave Potts, a.k.a. Cheeseisgood, back hanging out with me again. What up, Cheese?
Back again. If we combine everything we will have talked about all day, it will be almost enough stuff for a regular slate. It'll be great.
How did the morning slate go? Was it all right? Was it as expected?
Yeah, I mean, it was about like the Giants have 1 inning left. They were went a little under expectations. Kershaw did that. That was what we said. You had to play Kershaw, of course. All the other games were kind of, I don't know, nothing incredibly strange or not happened. It was kind of like, yeah, we were here for that, I guess.
It was a forgettable slate, morning slate. Well, we'll make up for it here in this little afternoon/evening slate.
No, we
got STL cards. Never mind, we won't. Cards, were the kids there on this road trip, or was it just you and the wife?
Yeah, no, it was a 10-day road trip with 2 10 and 13-year-old boys. So, so we went, and we did not know the Cardinals were in Cleveland when this trip started, like a couple weeks before the trip started. And we had just planned to go to Ohio anyway, because we spent a day at the Football Hall of Fame, which was probably the most uneventful day of the trip. And then we just said, well, Cleveland's only an hour or so away. Let's hop up to 1 game in Cleveland. And then the Cardinals were ahead in the 9th inning and got walked off in the bottom of the 9th. So that was our Cleveland experience. And then we went to Pittsburgh for 3 games, and they lost all 3 by a combined 4 runs. And then we came home, and the Pirates lost a series to the A's. So I'm not sure what's up with the Cardinals, but it was not the finest use of funds to sit there and watch them lose 4 games in a row. But I mean, PNC Park is great. If you ever get a chance to go to a game there, it's definitely a park you'd want to go see. But just wish, we could have gotten them to win a game. But
nothing like spending like all of your money and all of your time to do something and then everything fails. Like,
correct. Yes.
God,
and then
on that.
And then, we were walking to lunch one day, and our youngest son is still kind of like all over the place when he walks. So he kind of cut my wife off. And so she had to stop, and she slipped on a crack in the sidewalk and fell straight down, and bracing her fall, she broke her wrist. So that happened in the midst of all that, and it just and so the boys are of the age. So I don't know about you guys, but if you were autograph hounds when you were a kid, I was not, but I tried it a few times. Never really grabbed me. But our oldest, we had tickets right behind the Cardinals dugout for the first game. He says, "I'm going to go down and try to get an autograph." And I said, "All right, but if you want to go down there and try to get an autograph, you got to go stand down there the moment the gates open, because now the netting in all the parks goes all the way around the outfield. So there's only like a little area where you can congregate to try to get autographs." So we get there 90 minutes before the game starts. And I said, "You got to go stand down there and wait because most of the time they'll sign like during warmups, which is only like 15 or 20 minutes before the game." I'm like, "You're going to be down there for about an hour and 20 minutes and you got to stand there. And there's no guarantee that somebody's going to come over and sign anything." So both boys go down there. They stand there for an hour and 20 minutes. Nobody, no autographs, no nothing. And they're pretty bummed. And then the second day was the day our seats were way up. So they just sat up there with us. And of course, like 4 players go and sign balls during warmups that second day. And then the third day, he's like, "I'm going to try it again." And they both did manage to get a ball signed by a couple of the bullpen guys. So the saving grace on the trip was that the kids finally got a couple of autographs that they can remember and at least have something to look back on it on. But that's about the only positive.
Well, a trip that will live in infamy in the Van Zuiden household. Very much. Yeah. Hey, let's turn it around. We don't want your bad luck, your bad juju rubbing off on us cards. We want to turn it around. We're turning it around today. So help us out. We're going to dive into the slate here. That's my curveball. That's how I throw a curve.
The slate's not very exciting either, but we'll give it a try.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Hey, guys, make sure you're signed up for the Fanduel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. What? In bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Cheese, let's talk about this slate a little bit. I do want to add, we've got that slight smoke concern in Philly. I think you just go with it. But there's also a chance for a delay in both New York and Philly, like a rain delay. I think New York's not on the slate, right?
Correct.
So we don't care. Do we care about the potential for a delay in Philly if we get a little quick shower? Boop.
Very much so. Yeah, there's two great pitchers on FanDuel, and that's one of them in that game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want it noted. There's a chance for a delay. I don't think the chance is great enough, nor do I think that any storm would last long enough that it warrants benching pitchers. But I just don't want to get everybody, crapping on me if and when a random storm pops up. So that's it. That's all the weather that I have to talk about.
Okay. So two notes. One, for now, we're just assuming this game in Philly plays. We're going to talk about FanDuel if it plays. And it's the first game that starts. It starts in half an hour. They would have told us by now.
For sure.
I have to. The DraftKings slate, it still kind of looks to some people like the Yankees-White Sox game is on the slate. It's not. Do not play players in that game. They all get a 0. Okay. Now, as far as the slate goes, it's actually a pretty good slate on FanDuel. Like adding that Phillies game makes a big difference. It gives us 3 ace pitchers and some cheap pitchers. Whereas on DK with only 4 games, things are going to concentrate a good bit.
Yeah.
But I guess let's just talk, FanDuel pitching.
Yeah, let's do it.
Spencer Strider is 11-4, and Zach Wheeler is 10-8. Zach Wheeler against Detroit is pretty awesome, and it's hard to imagine him not having a good game. But he's also not Spencer Strider, as nobody is. So, I mean, officially, I would just play Strider first. There are lineups, plenty of lineups, really, where $600 is kind of a big deal. And I do like Wheeler plenty. What's interesting on FanDuel is now, I would say, essentially 0 people are going to play Framber Valdez. Arguably the best real-life pitcher in the world, honestly. He's not as good a DFS pitcher as Strider, as no one is.
Yeah.
But if I can get like a 5% owned Framber Valdez versus a 30% owned Strider and Wheeler, I mean, still, I want some of him. But definitely Strider and Wheeler kind of class their own. And then the cheap guy is Reed Detmers. Feel free to mess around with Verlander and Barrios if you really want to, but I don't think it's necessary at all. And then moving over to DraftKings, Strider becomes super mega popular because we don't have Wheeler. I think Strider Detmers is the mega chalk combo, and it's probably the best combo for the money. I want as much Valdez as SP2 as I can get. I can't get a lot with Strider, but I have a little bit. In the mid tier, I'm playing Barrios ahead of Verlander, but they're really close, and I go either way. But I prefer Detmers over them, really, even without the $2,000 savings. So with it, he's essentially good chalk. And then I'm playing plenty of this nonsense 32-year-old minor league relief pitcher journeyman, Matt Dermody, 4K. He's just an old dude who's going to throw some strikes. And against Cleveland, like, you can get 5 innings with a couple of runs and a couple of strikeouts. And for 4K, I'm fine with it.
And it's pretty good pitching weather there in Cleveland too. So
yeah, don't expect much out of this guy. Like, expect like 10 points.
Yeah.
Even 8, honestly. But so what? Like, that's fine.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Cards, what's your plan of attack here as you look at some of the pitchers?
Yeah, pretty similar. I mean, Strider is going to be the SP1, and I think the interesting, we'll talk about the difference when we get to DraftKings, but just as a hint of that, our ownership projection on him is like 70% on DK and only about 30 on FanDuel, because the cap is a bit tighter on FanDuel, and you have, Wheeler as kind of that 1B option. And I'm surprised that, given the matchup, Wheeler's strikeout prop is hanging up there around 8.5 in some places as well, which is a big number. So given the $600 discount, I think I like Wheeler a little bit more on FanDuel than Strider. If you've got the extra $600 and you just, straight up, which one do you play? I don't think you're kind of making the wrong call either way. But basically everyone else is in contrarian territory for such a short slate. You usually don't see, basically every other pitcher under 10% ownership there on FanDuel. So what Cheese mentioned about Valdez, if you want to take a shot on Verlander or something like that, it's fine. Savali, I think, is the interesting one that I maybe don't understand the projection quite as much. I just don't see the strikeout upside for him against Boston. Again, if you're building 100 lineups, 50 lineups tonight, do you throw him in some? Fine. I guess you can, but not a guy I'm going to take a strong stand on either way. Agree on the Detmers call. I think it's really interesting with Detmers being the cheapest pitcher on FanDuel. I mean, he's really been his advanced numbers are a lot better than what his surface numbers indicate. And, for him to be the cheapest pitcher, I think if you want to stack up your bats, he's perfectly fine. But I also do really like the Cubs as a stack. So I think that's an interesting kind of these are the types of matchups where generally people won't play the bats against them, but they also won't play the pitcher. And on a shorter slate, that's the kind of mistake I think that can cost you a slate. And even if you were to play Detmers and use like a power bat from the Cubs in there, I don't think that's the worst idea. Mainly probably a DraftKings play where you have 2 pitchers, but on a per dollar basis, Detmers grades out very well, but the Cubs are also, I would probably consider them a top 3 stack tonight as well. So otherwise, no major changes. It's definitely Strider and Wheeler on FanDuel as the chalkier guys, and then everybody else is kind of just to get a little bit different.
Okay. Fair enough. I suppose we should talk about the bats and the stacks, and Cards, you get the honor of leading us off in that department. Yeah,
there's not really one right answer as far as a team that's, clear and obvious tonight. Cleveland will get some attention because they're facing, the old dude right-hander or the old dude left-hander that just is not going to rack up a ton of points, and they've got a high run total, but that offense just isn't very good. And there's not a lot of pop outside of Ramirez in that lineup. So I don't love Cleveland. Atlanta's always capable of scoring a bunch of runs, but Verlander's not a guy that, you really want to stack against. The Phillies are probably going to make the most sense, I guess, on FanDuel, but they've struggled a bit compared to expectations offensively. So I kind of land on that late night game. I already mentioned I like the Cubs. I think the Angels are a team that, while Smiley's a pretty good pitcher, he's not going to blow the ball past a bunch of guys, and I think the Angels are probably my number one stack, then probably Philly, and then probably the Cubs.
Okay. Cheese, what are you doing here? What's your game plan?
On FanDuel, it's the Phillies. I think they're definitely the chalk and just a little too cheap. So that would be kind of the first spot. And then I do think I think there's going to be a lot of popular individual bats in the Cubs-Angels game. Like I think everybody's going to have some right-handed bat or two in that game somewhere. But I'm not sure that either full stack is really popular enough to worry about. And really, kind of to reiterate what I wrote in the musings, like every team is kind of stackable just because it's baseball and it's a small slate. But it's much more just a bat here and a bat there, and mini stacks that I like rather than a team as a whole, other than the Phillies on the FanDuel slate.
Okay. I suppose, Cheese, do we want to speed up and make sure that we get everything in here before we hit the FanDuel lock? Is that the game plan?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Then let's do it. Let's go around the horn. What do you got a catcher?
Yep. So catcher Yan Gomes is the chalk. If Miguel Amaya is in the lineup, basically a cheap Cubs catcher is the chalk. Darno is interesting, but really there's nothing here. And this is, even if you're not full stacking, just correlate your catcher, and that's it.
Okay. Cards?
Remind me about this Cubs thing after we get through the FanDuel lock. I've got something to go around on with that, but I'll wait till after the FanDuel lock. I agree on the Cubs, guys. That is the only lineup I just refreshed while Cheese was talking, and I still don't see it. So that's the only lineup we still don't have. Got to keep an eye out for that. But Gomes is certainly a viable cheap play. Obviously, you don't have to play one on FanDuel, but Real Muto at 2,800 is probably going to be the one guy that carries some ownership because he's hitting fifth, and FanDuel does also make the catchers. There's nobody over 2,900 that's starting tonight. So you can certainly play a cheap Cubs catcher or Real Muto on FanDuel. Otherwise, I probably leave catcher alone.
Okay, take me to first base.
You can play Harper at first on FanDuel, so he will probably be the most popular option. The Angels lineup just came out right around the time we went on the air, and Drury is hitting cleanup tonight. He's 3K on FanDuel. Probably prefer playing him at second, although first base isn't exactly the deepest position tonight. If you're going a little cheap at pitcher, maybe you can get up to, Matt Olson and Vlad. Vlad hasn't homered at home all year, which is crazy. It's June, but still a guy that's got tons of power, and they're not going to be highly owned tonight because of the pitchers that they're facing. But Verlander's prone to power at times, and Vlad's capable against any pitcher. So I don't mind those guys as more contrarian one-offs in GPPs tonight. In cash, I'm probably going with Harper or Drury on FanDuel.
Cheese, first base.
Yeah, Harper on FanDuel. If you need cheap, really on both sites, Josh Bell, Tristan Casas, Sue Casas. Those are your baseball players.
Okay, second base.
Like Cards mentioned at first, Brandon Drury. I think you want him at second. Andres Jimenez is one of the Cleveland bats that I would not mind playing in a mini stack. Bryson Stott in a Phillies stack. Albies, kind of. Nico Horner and Altuve, kind of. Like, it's all fine, but honestly, Drury's the only guy I really particularly like.
Okay. Guards, your thoughts at second?
Yeah, not much to add there. It's probably the weakest position on the board tonight. I'm okay with Albies and Stott, and Rengifo's in the Angels lineup tonight. If you're looking for something super cheap, that's a better DraftKings play than it is a FanDuel play, though. You're probably trying to get Drury or Jimenez, or you can always play Altuve, I guess, on FanDuel, but probably not the optimal use of a high-end salary tonight. So Altuve and Horner would be guys that I would probably only play in stacks of those respective teams.
Very good. Third base, Guards.
All right, definitely a little more depth here. And this is probably a spot where I am looking to spend Devers. Savali, while I don't love him as a pitching option, not a pitcher that I'll often take a bunch of bats against, but Devers is clearly in play, though I think if you're spending up, Jose Ramirez is cheaper than Devers on FanDuel. The one Cleveland bat that, really you want to try to prioritize against a lower strikeout lefty. So I'd probably rank the high-end guys, Ramirez, Devers, Riley, though all three of them are fine. If you're looking to go, just a little bit cheaper on FanDuel, you could maybe look to, Bregman is 3,100, but again, that's the same price as Riley. Urshela, I suppose, hitting fifth for the Angels tonight, but probably a position where you're going to want to spend on either Devers or Ramirez for me.
Cheese, you spend it up at third? You always spend up at third.
Ramirez 1, Devers 2, definitely. If Patrick Wisdom is in the lineup, he's one of the guys I like, even in a Detmers lineup. Just kind of chasing the homer.
Okay. Shortstop. Is there a cheapie? Like, is it crazy to just be like, no, I'm going to do what no one's doing. I'm going to play a cheapie at third.
At third? They don't even really get that cheap at third.
So then just play someone good.
Do that somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. Shortstop.
Shortstop on FanDuel is Trey Turner. He's only 3K. Or you could even do Ahmed Rosario, who's only 2,500. And Swanson's only 31. And Jeremy Pena is only 3K. So basically, you're going to play a good shortstop. I don't think you want to goof around with the cheap nonsense at all at shortstop. DraftKings pricing's a little funnier with Swanson up at 52. Even Pena's a little pricey at 46. So I think Rosario gets kind of chalky there, and I don't love Rosario outside of stacks. I would much rather try to get up or go down to something like Kiki Hernandez, Christian Arroyo. Like this is the spot where I'll just punt with whoever has at least one arm and two legs.
It's a good plan. Cards, what are you doing at short? Looking for a man with at least one arm and two legs?
Yeah, I mean, preferably two arms and two arms.
Well, you can swing a bat against Savali for at least.
Yeah, maybe 1.5. Yeah, it's if you're trying to prioritize whether you want to spend top dollar at third or short, I do think third is the spot. Though I do like Cheese mentioned Wisdom as the Cub power bat against Detmers. Dansby Swanson, I think, is fine in that realm as well. Mentioned Urshela at third, but you can probably play him at short. Third is probably actually the last place I'd play him with the three positions he's eligible at on FanDuel. I mean, and if you want the super YOLO crazy GPP play, if you're for some reason not on Wheeler, he may swing at a pitch in the other batter's box, but Baez can still occasionally run into one. He's 2,600, 3% ownership. I mean, it's basically just a YOLO dart throw, but crazier things have happened, and it's a 5-game slate. So,
okay. I think that takes us to the outfield cards. What do you like?
It does, and I think the outfield is really, really intriguing here because depending on what you see with ownership, and it's a tough slate to peg ownership on. We've got Ohtani at like 36% ownership now. We've got Schwarber at like 22% ownership, and both of those guys in disadvantaged splits matchups tonight. That doesn't mean everything, but we've got Trout at basically half the ownership of Ohtani at the moment. So I think I would take Trout first for $300 less. Again, assuming that ownership is correct. Don't mind Seiya Suzuki. Taylor Ward is leading off for the Angels. So again, I'm stacking the Cubs and the Angels a lot, just obvious, based on some of the guys I've recommended. So in stacks and individually, I don't mind playing a few of those guys. If you get outside of that, I think my other favorite Boston bat tonight would be Yoshida, and he's kind of pricey to where maybe that ownership stays down a bit. If you're looking for some one-off plays, again, I'm not huge on Cleveland as a whole tonight, but Kwan, I mean, is a basically put the ball in play every time guy. People will see lefty, and they won't play him. He's only 2,800 on FanDuel. So that's a guy that maybe you can look to get a little bit cheaper with. But it seems like on FanDuel, the Phillies and then the two Angels stars are going to be the chalk. So anything you can do to get different, it's probably outside of that.
Okay. Cheese, your thoughts?
So to what Cards was saying, I don't think there's any world in which Ohtani is twice the ownership of Trout. I don't understand how ownership projections come to be sometimes. But they'll be at least similar, if not an edge to Trout. But they're both very good plays, and I love them both. And then Taylor Ward as a cheap Angels outfielder. On FanDuel, Schwarber is just way too cheap. I like Seiya Suzuki a lot in that same sort of 3K price range. I want Alvarez more than anyone if I can just get up to whoever I want. But Tucker is cheaper enough, and I'm fine, especially on FanDuel, to just play Tucker. I think Acuna probably goes under-owned on DK because he's so expensive and he's facing Verlander. But you can still play him, obviously. Jaron Duran, mostly on DK, is a little too cheap. I do like the Braves' cheap outfielders, guys like Ozuna, Harris, and Rosario. Joe Adele and Jake Myers on DK being super cheap. You don't really need to mess with that kind of stuff on FanDuel with all the great guys around 3,000.
Okay. Very good, guys. We've got still almost 10 minutes until lock, which is excellent here. And cards, we do a new little segment. You got to pick someone who hits a home run. Cheese loves this segment, but we're going to let him go second.
Oh.
It's his favorite thing to do.
Are there stipulations on this? Can I just take like Ohtani every night and I'm good to go? Or
you can do that, but you get judged a little bit.
Yeah, so you get hassled.
Exactly, you get heckled, and if you go too crazy and the guy never hits, you also get heckled. So you got to try to find.
So in other words, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Pretty much,
you will get heckled no matter what. Unless they just hit a bomb, then you won't.
I am. I'm tentatively going to go with Dansby Swanson, but pending the Cubs lineup coming out.
Okay, very good. Cheese, you got a fondue bomb for us?
Yeah, Brandon Drury.
Drury. Okay, very nice. We got some. God, I just feel like shit. I still feel sick. It's been like 3 days in a row. All right, let's take some QQs. We got like 8-9 minutes here until lock. I'm going to start off in the RG Discord. Hey, if you're watching this and you think other than that guy who's complaining about how he feels, this show is tremendous, you should hit that thumbs up for us. Do it for Cheese. Do it for cards. Just do it. Do it.
It's a little late now. Kevin, you should have just said that you love us so much you're on the ground in Philly and just breathing in smoke and coffee just to get us the news.
That's right. I'm here just to experience it. Let's get some QQs, Cheese. Let's do it. I'm going to pull up the RG Discord, and I'll be taking some questions from the YouTube. Beaner says, Cheese, give me a pitcher in a FanDuel GPP. Give me a pitcher, any pitcher.
I mean, Spencer Strider.
Yeah. What is Strider going to be the most owned pitcher on FanDuel or no?
Yeah, but it's going to be close with Strider Wheeler. Like he's not going to be like 70% owned like he is on DK.
Do you feel he should be 70% owned? Because I do.
No, I would say he should be 50. But Wheeler's a great play too, so I think it's okay that ownership gets split up.
I got you. All right. DePrince says, Cards, what are your thoughts on Berrios on FanDuel? Any interest in some Berrios?
I can get there on DraftKings. I can't really get there on FanDuel with just the one pitcher. I mean, facing Houston, we've seen what they've done to some of those Toronto pitchers. So I guess mainly
Ohtani. They shelled Ohtani.
Yeah, I mean that's just that's a team that's getting healthy and showing it, with some of their results. So I'm fine with it as an SP2 in tournaments on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I just really don't think it's necessary tonight.
Okay. Chris says, hey, Cheese, could you just recap FanDuel pitching for me outside of the high end, which, Strider, Wheeler, both great plays. Yeah. And then
essentially, it's just Reed Detmers.
Yeah.
Just spend up or play Reed Detmers. That's honestly it. I mean, you're allowed to play Verlander or Berrios if you really want to. I like Detmers just as much, and he's cheaper.
Okay. Cards, we got a question from Alex for you. RG Alex. Adele. Is his name Adele? Adele like the singer and Nevin, or Abreu and Maton? Maton.
Boy, I do like Adele tonight. I don't really like Nevin. So basically this is like a double punt question. Yeah, I like the first one, but I would probably try to rework somebody instead of Nevin if you can.
Okay. King of Smack says, hey, is it safe to play the Phillies game? You know what word I hate in this industry is safe?
Safe.
Oh, God, I hate that word. But I would play it. I think it's going to be okay. I think if they were going to postpone, they would have done it 3 hours ago.
If they postpone within 10 minutes, within 6 minutes of the start time when they've had all day, I mean, that would be next level.
Yeah, it's not like we're
awesome.
talking about the Nationals here.
Exactly. If it were the Nationals, I'd be a little more worried. But yeah, it is safe-ish. Keep in mind there's that low chance of a delay if a random pop-up happens, but I don't think it's very likely. I love this question because this is the last thing I ever do, and I feel like it's the thing I should do. Cheese, can you... Oh, never mind. This is what I always do, and I always lose. Cheese, can you pay down for both pitchers in high dollar DK tournaments? This is my move.
Yeah. I have one or two lineups that do it, and it's kind of the only way you can definitely get different. It's so hard to spend that salary and like locks you into almost just one straight lineup build. Like there's only a couple of choices at every position. So I really don't love it, but yes, I mean, in all transparency, I have like 2 lineups like that and in like single entry stuff. So yes, you can.
Sure. All right. John says, hey, Cards, is a Yankees game in snake contest good? I don't know what the hell that means. What is a snake contest?
Yeah, so DraftKings offers like snake draft contests where they aren't very popular, but you can basically join and, then it'll snake like a normal fantasy draft would, and it's just for that night. I mean, they hardly ever fill. I was once on a kick of doing these. You will appreciate this, Roth. There was one night like a couple of years ago where I don't know if it was like remnants of a hurricane going up the East Coast or something, but basically there was like 4 games the next day that were just locked on, going to get postponed.
Yeah.
So the night before I tried to join a bunch of snake drafts and, beat the news on the weather front and hope that other people would draft players from the weather games. I filled maybe like $20 worth of snake drafts that night. They're just not very popular.
Did you crush them with your weather knowledge? Do you remember if you won?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was so I would join like a 6-man draft or whatever, but there was a couple other people that you would see, wouldn't draft anybody from those games. Yeah. And then, the other 3 or 4 people were just dead in the water because they ended up with a bunch of studs from the games that got rained out. Definitely a plus EV move, though I'm not sure if it was worth like my 4 hours of drafting for like the $40 of lineups that I ended up getting in. But anyways, that's what the snake contest is. And I believe the same rules apply to the snake drafts that apply to the regular contests, to where if you're drafting on DK, I don't think those Yankees and White Sox guys will count. Though I admit I have not done any snake drafts today, and I do not know that for sure, but that's always how it used to be.
Gotcha. Okay. Alan says a snake contest is when you put 2 snakes in a cardboard box and watch them fight. That's what I thought it was. So I was confused, but that makes sense. Byron says, hey, Roth, I saw you on the Weather Channel this morning. Good piece of info. Thank you. It was not the way I intended that interview to go, but I think it hopefully turned out all right. I appreciate you watching. Let's see what else we got. Fanduel Cash, Cheese, 3v3. Real Muto, Jimenez, Casti, or Bell, Drury, Ward.
It's pretty good on both sides. I would lean Realmuto, Jimenez, Casti.
Okay. Bill T says some nights paying down for both pitchers on DK works out really well. The key is that the stud pitchers have to disappoint, and then the stud hitters pay off. That's my issue. I think I'm so sneaky. My 2 pitchers always do well, and then my freaking Mike Trout, Ohtani, Judge all have like 5 Ks and get me nothing.
Yeah, the thing that doesn't get pointed out enough, like it's very obvious when high-end pitchers fail and people yell and scream and lose their mind. High-end hitters fail way more often. It's not like you're getting guaranteed points from spending on hitter. In fact, it's very unlikely. So just that's why you generally pay up for pitcher, because they don't fail nearly as often as the high-end bets.
You told me that like 3 or 4 years ago, and I had completely forgotten it. And now I am like re-soaking in that information to my brain so that I stop torturing myself. Joseph says, is Philly good to go? We think so. We haven't heard otherwise, so we assume so. About a minute and a half here until lock. A few more QQs. FanDuel Cash, Cards. You want Real Muto, Ward, or Jimenez and Trey Turner?
First one.
Sherman Stakes is FanDuel Cash, Cheese. You want Rosario or Jimenez? There's a lot of Jimenez questions. He's been in every question in the Discord.
He's cheap on FanDuel. I would play Rosario.
Okay. Kakus Max says, do we think Detmers gets shellacked? Think he's going to get shellacked?
It's good for my Cub stacks if he does, but
yeah,
from a projection standpoint, he's probably a great value.
I think we all think the Cubs are going to score a few runs and probably hit a couple of homers, but we also don't think Detmers is going to get shelled, which is why I think both Cards and I have said, like, play Detmers and a Cubs bat or two in the same lineup.
Yeah. All right. Tyler says Fromber. Cards, I'm giving this one to you. Fromber and Josh Bell, or Detmers and Jordan, DK Cash.
Yeah, Josh Bell is horrible. I can't endorse Josh Bell and Cash at this point, even in the matchup. So the other one, the one with Jordan in it.
Very good. Hey, with that, we've hit the lock.
No, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, really? Is it the two? Is it?
Oh, I stand corrected. That's the DraftKings 707. I am wrong. I can take those 2 minutes and give my Cubs rant, though.
I do want your Cubs rant. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm fully of the opinion that the Cardinals front office is a mess and the manager is horrible and they just need a lot of changes. I think Cubs fans feel the same way about David Ross at the moment. People complain about his usage as a bullpen, but the bullpen is just not that good, so you're not going to be able to mask that.
Yeah.
The strange thing that I find with the Cubs is the way that David Ross runs his lineup. It's like whenever Wisdom and Morel are in there, they're always hitting some combination of like 7th, 8th, or 9th. I think he moved Morel up to like 6 for a couple of games. These are two of the most capable guys that you have, outside of your top couple of bats that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And you're batting them like 8th and 9th every day. And they're not both playing the same day. So, a lot of times if Wisdom's in there hitting 8th, you got a nobody hitting 9th. And then, they can just pitch around him. And then Wisdom, has a tendency to chase. So he can strike out a lot. I don't understand the logic behind the way the Cubs fill out their lineup card on a nightly basis. And I'm sure Cubs fans, if there are any Cubs fans watching, will be nodding their heads. But like right now, our projected
nobody's
lineup,
nodding their head.
the right now our projected lineup has Wisdom 8th and Morel 9th. Like why? What? I don't understand the logic behind hitting those guys at the very
and they probably won't even both play, like you say. Yeah, why get all the homers if you can get?
Yeah, you might as well. Fewer at bats and more time on the bench is probably the right move. But I don't know. I don't get it. But it's got to be frustrating for the Cubs fans. You got a young guy with a ton. Like I think Morel had 16 homers in the minors before they brought him up, and he played for the big league team for a good portion of last year. And he did okay. I mean, he's very streaky and stuff, but I just don't understand the logic behind hitting him 9th. And they've been, the guys they've been like Taubman was hitting 3rd for a week. I don't know, but again, that Cubs lineup still is not out, and I'm stacking them a lot, so I keep refreshing it. But I don't know. It's just weird how the Cubs make their lineups out on a nightly basis.
And when Morel came up this year, he hit, I think, 7 homers in 9 days. And then he went like 4 days without a homer, and it was like,
he's back tonight.
He was like a mad DFS player at that point. He's like, I don't like him anymore.
Yeah, this guy sucks. He's cold. Yeah. And so not only are you not protecting him by putting talented players around him, he's more likely to be hitting solo homers instead of meaningful 2 and 3 run bombs, right? Like if he was batting.
Yeah, and I mean, I get like, if you want to hit Yan Gomes a little bit higher against a lefty, but he's still Yan Gomes. Trey Mancini has, obviously passed his prime at this point. Why are these guys hitting 4, 5, 6 as opposed to, Wisdom, who's got a bunch of power, and Morel, who's probably your most talented young player? So,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not a Cubs fan, and I'm not complaining from that perspective, but it's just weird, and I think it tends to sap their DFS upside a little bit, but also keeps them lower owned. Like if Wisdom's hitting 9th, nobody's going to play him, and he can always hit one out. So,
just real quick, since Cards is here and talking about his terrible Cards vacation, and then talking about the Cubs, I just want to point out the craziest thing about the NL Central, just in case no one's noticed this.
Let's hear it.
The last place Cardinals, of course. There's only one team in that division with a positive run differential, and it's the Cardinals.
The Cardinals. Yep.
It's the Cardinals. The Cincinnati Reds, who are like 3 games ahead of the Cardinals, have a negative 36 run differential. The first place Brewers are at minus 15, and the Cardinals are the only team with a positive run differential in last
and
place.
it's +1.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. That's tough.
To see a team with a minus 36 3 games ahead of you, that's pretty rough.
Yeah. You gotta work on that situational scoring, situational hitting.
It's
work on something.
Yeah. I don't know. I gotta pull up they've been horrible in 1-run games, which is the general problem you'll see with the team that's got a bad record and a positive run differential. They're 7-14 in 1-run games, which is not.
And that's a lot. Like, there's some bad bullpen maybe in that, but that's a lot of just bad luck. That's kind of like BABIP, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, all this to say, I still honestly think the Cardinals win that division.
Okay. I mean,
you have more faith than I do, but again, I just got done driving 10 hours across the country to watch them lose 4 games, so I'm still a little jaded. But I mean, there's obviously time in that division. Like, I don't think you could make a claim for anybody in that division to win it right now, and it would be a logical claim, because like the Brewers are the favorites right now, but they can't hit lefties, and Burns look shaky, and Woodruff's on the 60-day IL. Heck, the Pirates look like they could beat anybody when they swept the Cardinals, and then they lost a series to the A's. The Reds are calling up their young prospects, like De La Cruz is mashing the ball, and Matt McLean's been pretty good. The Cubs may be a little bit of a weaker case, but they do have some power bats, and the Cardinals were the favorites going into the season. Like, you can make a case for any of the 5 teams.
Yeah.
And I mentioned it, like the Pirates were plus 700 to win the division the other day. I think Dean was tweeting out this morning that the Reds were like plus 2,000 or something like that. You could do crazier things than betting on a big underdog to win the NL Central right now, because it's just awful, and it's some ugly baseball. But hopefully
it's gonna be fun.
The Cardinals get it going. But
it's
like the NFC East from the few years back when there was teams battling it out at 8-8. It's the NL Central could have like a 500 division winner. It's ugly.
All right. Hey, we're going to get on out of here. We do have actually just a couple more questions. Let's get those real quick before we bounce. Cheese Strider and Alvarez DK single entry. I mean, I'm not sure what the issue there. That you just said 2 of the best players in the world.
Probably the 2 best players on the slate. So
yeah, we like that. Beaner says Urshela or Ramirez cards in a Fanduel GPP.
Who was the first one?
Urshela or Ramirez.
I mean, in a vacuum, it's Ramirez.
Okay.
Even in a non-vacuum, it
just is.
In a hurricane, it's Ramirez. Unless
even in an Angel stack, it's Ramirez. Honestly,
really. All right. And then F Primo says, "Can I open my windows in Philly yet, Roth?" You can, but close it soon, because I think it's going to get worse again tonight. So you can briefly open it. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We're going to bounce on out of here. So for Cheese, for Cards, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been punished.